We open on the charge, down the hill, Empire versus Khuzaits, a common scene yet one that probably won't end well for the infantry. Valandian cavalry march into war, the drums signify their entrance before the Empire cavalry attempts to show their worth. The horseback warfare rages as the Khuzaits come in with their deadly bows. A siege beholds, trebuchets attack the walls and... okay, you get the picture. It's Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord, and it's the official trailer for the goddamn full release. At this point, all I can say is, goddamn it guys, we were right. Wait a second. Does that say the 25th of October? So after all this time, the actual leaks were correct? Who would have thought? Okay, even at the time, the video that I made a couple weeks ago of Bannerlord's release date supposedly being leaked, there was a PS5 listing on Amazon saying that the game is coming out and it's going to be on the 25th of October, and then it turns out that that's actually right. These leaks never seem to come true, and even at the time I wasn't entirely sure if it was going to be right, but hey, we got out of that one smoothly. So yes, Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord finally has a full release, and the speculations were correct. Not only did we get an official release date for PS5, PS4, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S, but also we have the full release for the PC version. And my god, has this been a long time coming. But what does this actually mean? Because it's very, very exciting and all. This is what most people have been waiting for, but my question is, after I saw this and after I got so excited at a new trailer, my first thought was, wait a second, why? You see, Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord came out in early access in March of 2020, over 2 years ago now, and we're really pushing through into that third year. The time is ticking on the watch a little bit. People were starting to get frustrated. We wanted a full release, but I don't think anyone really knew why. I guess they just wanted to feel like they got the product in their hands. You see, Tailwoods have been updating the game through this whole early access thing. There's always been a stigma with early access, that developers bring it out to get some extra money, and sometimes they just end up running away and taking the money and leaving a game in a not exactly pristine condition. However, it seemed like that was different with Tailwoods. They have the reputation of Mount & Blade Warband, and they had the big budget and the big backing behind it. I mean, they've just moved into a new office, and this thing goddamn looks like a monastery. So we knew that they weren't going to do the early access thing and run away. but it was just when we'd actually get a full release and what that actually meant for the franchise in general. Are Tale Worlds going to completely stop development on this thing? Is this the end of patches? I'm not entirely sure. I think Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord is always going to be updated. There's always going to be extra content coming out, whether that is mods or behind the scenes Tale World patches. I could see ourselves being in the position where Tale Worlds say, this is the last big bit of content that's coming out. We have finished the game in the stage that it's in and we're happy with it. Bits of content like new extra armors, things like the battle terrain mode and things that are finished in that general sense. Yet I think it's always going to be a factor that they're going to be updating the back end, fixing bugs, crashes or the likes, but more importantly, updating things like modding tools so modders can continue the legacy of Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord's content releases, bringing out overhauls like the Eagle Rising and Burning Empires, Separatist Crisis and other amazing mods like that, especially the overhauls. The ones that are large scale, complete changes to the setting and time period of Bannerlord, they need constant updates to the modding tools in order to be created. So Tale Worlds are going to have to do their job and constantly update said modding tools to keep the modding community happy. That's a situation that I could definitely see ourselves being in. But in terms of actual content, I'm not entirely sure that it's going to slow down for now. It's not just Bannerlord, but it's the theatre of gaming that we see in this day and age. Games don't have a big release anymore. That can have its massive downsides, and we definitely saw it with Bannerlord. The early access release was insane. But then this release, to me at least, feels a little bit like a wet fart coming out. Don't get me wrong, it feels very satisfying, but it wasn't the big... God, I can't go with this analogy. It wasn't the big spectacle I think we were all hoping for. That is actually disgusting. Is that a negative for Bannerlord? Not if you're one of those fans that just wants to get rid of that early access sign, because let's be honest, while Tale Worlds have done a good job of bringing out enough content during the early access and keeping people updated at what's going on, having that badge of early access in front of your game isn't the best promotion. It doesn't give people the best of hope with your title. So taking that away and having full release is going to be great for the brand. It also gives Tale Worlds that second wave of fans to come back in and see what they've been working on for the last year, because don't forget, whilst people that are watching this video and a lot of people that subscribe to this channel will have followed Bannerlord every single step of the way, a lot of people won't have, and those people might have played it on the early access release and then just left it. This might bring them back and bring that community, and they'll get to see extra things like the battle deployment mode, battle terrain systems, all the new extra assets and all the mods that have been developed during that time, and that doesn't even go into the multiplayer. Now I think we're going to see custom servers that are going to come at this October release date as well. The clans are going to come back, and multiplayer mods are also going to make a return as the server files will be released to the public. That is exciting to me, and that new wave of fans coming back in on this new breath of fresh air, this new second wind for the release of Bannerlord is going to be an asset to it rather than its detriment. But will it really change anything for the hardcore Mount & Blade fan? Will it even change anything for people like me that play casually but still follow the development? Well, I don't think so. Because whilst we get rid of that early access badge, I still think Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord is going to stay pretty much the same. In terms of the development cycle, we're going to get updates every few months, a lot of patches, mini ones, big ones, who knows. More mods are going to come out, and whilst it won't have early access plastered all over it anymore, it's still going to look exactly the same. Other than the console releases and maybe multiplayer custom servers, I don't think there's going to be any big additions or massive revelations with this release. I think it's just going to be taking away that early access plaque that we have seen for so long now. Is that a bad thing? No, definitely not. And for Tale Worlds, this is only a great thing. I mean, they get the new second wind of players to come back in. They also get to release on consoles, which is a whole new audience. This is going to be really big for the game, but it isn't going to fundamentally change what we've been playing for the last 2.5 years. So if you're just interested in the single player, you can probably leave this video now, because I'm going to talk about the multiplayer, and I know many people aren't that bothered about it, because I think this is where the big changes come in. Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord's multiplayer has been lackluster for the last 2.5 years. On release, it was good fun to jump into, and of course, we got the early access and beta versions even before that. But since then, it's just been servers of people playing sieges or team deathmatch modes, jumping in, playing for an hour, and then hopping off. There's not really been anything to get your teeth into, no reason for people to really stick around for the longest of time, and that's something that I've really been missing out on, and I think Bannerlord has really missed out on it. But with this release, it looks like we will be getting multiplayer server files and custom servers. We've already seen some YouTubers popping up of these custom servers being edited to make people jump higher, run faster, even have a 300 Spartan look within it. And this is the start of those Full Invasion 2 mods, March of Rome mods. This is where it all began in Warband, and we're starting to see that in Bannerlord now. And yes, it's been 2.5 years, and it has been a little bit sad that we haven't had anything in a long time for the multiplayer fans, but I think it's finally going to come. And what does that mean for Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord in general? Well, whilst the single player is probably going to stay pretty much the same and slowly ticking over and updating throughout time, the multiplayer is going to bring in a massive plethora of new players. We saw it with Warband. If people aren't that experienced in the history of Mount & Blade, Warband was very popular back in the day for its new look on this sandbox medieval world. Calradia's single player was very popular. It wasn't the most refined thing in the world, but it got people's attention. It addicted people in that kind of similar way that Civilization 5 did, just in a more real-time world. But the multiplayer was what got the name for Mount & Blade out. It's what people watched on YouTube. Seeing the line battles of the community events were what really got people's attention. And hopefully we can see the same with Bannerlord. But will it be too late? You see, 2.5 years is a long time, and it has had some effects on the player base. Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord is still a very healthy game. It's still one of the most played games on Steam even to this day. Not in terms of the hundreds of thousands concurrent players that things like CSGO and so on have, but with 20,000 people concurrently playing on most days, it still doesn't get much better for a game than that. And with this full release, with the console release as well, this player base could come back. We could start seeing those 30, 40, 50,000 concurrent players, and with these community events, maybe even more. But even the long-term fans do feel a little bit let down that 2.5 years hasn't amounted to exactly what they were hoping for. Is that completely fair on Tailwords? Nah, maybe not. I think most people have an idea of what they want a game to be, and if it doesn't exactly live up to it, then they tend to get quite disappointed, sometimes unfairly, but it doesn't disregard the point in general. Many fans and many people in the community have been disappointed with the way that Mount & Blade's development cycle has gone. Not just before the full release, in the long drawn-out miscommunication between the fans and the dev team, but even now, similar things happening and things just not quite happening as fast as many people want. Sometimes unrealistically want things to come out, but nonetheless, people were still frustrated. But I guess time can only tell with that sort of thing. This official release is very exciting for Tailwords themselves. I think it's probably very exciting for a lot of fans watching this for the short term. In the long term, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. It's still going to be the same game that we have now, maybe with a bit more content and a bigger community because of those console versions. Yet it gives that hope, it gives that refresher, and it gives that look that Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord is still here to stay, even after 2.5 years. Most games tend to die off very quickly these days. People go from one thing to another, and I think it's very easy to unfairly judge Mount & Blade, saying that it's not the game I wanted, but it is the game a lot of people did want. And it's brought in a completely new community and put this medieval genre into the mainstream, and still, even 2.5 years later, has one of the most loyal and dedicated fan bases. I mean, I can see that firsthand. I love to vary my content, and these days you've probably seen it more. I'm talking about more games. I like to stick within the historical genre because I know that's what my subscribers like, but I still like to explore things. I've been talking a lot about things like Skull and Bones, Mordhau, Stormright. I even have an FPS channel where I talk about Insurgency, Hell Let Loose, that sort of thing. But there's one game that still pulls in the views like no other, and that's Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord. And I can't ignore that. There's still a reason why people want to see this, because it has such a passionate and loyal fan base. I put up a video just 3 or 4 days ago and it surpassed 100,000 views in less than 24 hours, and it was insane to me. But I guess it shouldn't really be all that surprising, because Tailwords do have something very special on their hands here, and I think this is just going to reiterate that to a bigger fan base. But please let me know what you think. Do you think that this full release is really going to change all that much within Mount & Blade, or do you think it's just a fun little celebration to mark an important part of the development cycle? Let me know down in the comments. But until then, I will see you in the next one.